all about my cheese. I ain't worried about the pasta. Baby, 9 hooks, ain't the mind on the rock. They got hit up, might as well pop it out. Fire like a top, burn like a pepper. Screens spinning right, predicting like the weather. Serve in my cup, can't go without my medicine. So fresh, big bag of pepper. Where is my letterman? I'm balling on these suckers. You know the money talk, you can ask Chris Tucker.
All right, welcome to the Side Action. We're Season 8, Episode 20. My name is Jim Weglars, a.k.a. Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on X and on Instagram. Follow my esteemed colleague who's not with us today, Dalton Cooper, at Mr. Grumpy Gills on X. That's Dalton Cooper, and Dalton Cooper on Instagram. So follow us at Side Action Pod on X, Side Action Podcast on Instagram, and obviously TikTok, as Coop always says, my baby. Been trying to get things going on there with mixed results, so please follow us and like us. So hey, flying solo today. It's going to be an interesting adventure here. We've got a lot of big games in the NFL this weekend. I'll recap the college games that happened mostly yesterday, but somewhat on New Year's Eve, and pretty good results for both Coop and I in that regard. So hopefully you can get some insights to us. We will record next week. Probably Thursday. We have to talk about that. Maybe we'll do it Wednesday so we can get in advance of those games. But some pretty exciting things happening. And Happy New Year, everybody. I know it's the 2nd. You can do this up to the 5th, I've heard. But yeah, Happy New Year from me. And hopefully you had a great time over the Christmas and New Year's holidays. For me, huge weekend. Christmas movies. I won't give you the full breakdowns, but saw Marty Supreme. Pretty good. I liked some aspects of the movie. Didn't love. It was kind of disjointed. I mean, if you've seen that director's movies before, like Uncut Gems, which is a favorite of mine, it's the same kind of pacing, just a different era. So it was interesting. Chalamet did pretty good. The better movie we saw was The Secret Agent. It's a Brazilian movie set in the late 1970s. And really cool movie. Obviously, it has subtitles. You got to get used to that. But really awesome pacing and so on. Again, the ending, I had mixed discussions with my daughter about it. I think that the ending could have been different, but I still think it was an interesting film. So if you haven't seen it, check it out, called The Secret Agent. It's in most theaters now. Obviously, my birthday was on the 27th. Hit Rivers on the 26th. I guess last time we talked, I did have a great roll myself. Kind of finished the year strong. Got to roll all the numbers for the first time. That was with Luke Young and Desert Dave, Arizona Desert Dave. And we had that was a great, Friday afternoon. It felt really good. Actually, I've never done it before, so those of you who don't know, there's a bonus most casinos offer if you roll 2 through 6 and then 8 through 12 before you roll the 7, the bad number, you get a pretty good bonus. That was a good $1,200 hit, and on the day made $2,300 or something like that. It was a pretty good day. Did go back and lose a little money on the weekend, so give or take. But then New Year's Eve, I laid low for a few days, just kind of took it easy, not working much, hanging out with my daughter, watching movies and stuff, and then went out with Paul Agave, Paul Gave, and my buddy Patrick, and a couple of Paul's buddies from high school that, it was quite a night. We started off, watching the Miami game. It was pretty low-key. That helped. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then just went to one of his local bars called Pete's Place, kind of Old Irving area of Chicago. I don't know, man, just kind of stepped up. Maybe it was those apple pie shots, maybe just having too good of a time. Next thing you know, we go to Latin Bliss, which is a Colombian dance club up here on the northwest side. And I was like, it's 2:30 in the morning. I'm going to hit Rivers one more time, because I had gone during the day and won again, $250. I'm like, let me try it again. So I go to the friggin' Rivers at 3 a.m. and rolled the bones and, did pretty good. Then this other guy did good, really good. So I won a little more money. And then I go to another table. They're closing down the tables because it's so late. I have one more awesome roll, and I'm doing my hard way parlays, which I know I'm going to have to do the Craps podcast at some point. But in the end, walked away another $250, $270 up. So on the day was up $400, which is great. So, hey man, finish strong. Rivers is, going to want me back soon. But I'm going to try to take a little time off until after the Super Bowl. So anyway, typical Jimmy Wegs weekend. Let's go into the shed. Looks like Coop didn't put an entry, so I'll tell you who I've got. First occupants in the shed are the Diggs brothers. One more than the other. It just kind of happened. We'll talk about, Stephon Diggs. I don't know, man. Some of these wide receivers, I wish, they have a great life, man. They're going out there living their best lives on boats, getting like 3 girls pregnant in a year or something. So that goes beyond saying, but then Stephon was arrested for like strangulating a girl or something. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sure the camp is circling. They knew that before the game on Sunday. He still played. He obviously is out on bond or whatever he's out on. But clearly there's a lot of crap going on with him, so hopefully he gets things straightened out. I'm not sure if he's going to get suspended. That's all up in the air right now, but that's a tough thing for him to go in the shed and think about. And then his brother, independent of that, for the Cowboys gets released so they can not pay $500,000, I guess some sort of bonus that triggers if he's on the team at the end of the given year. I think it was like $472,000 here and like whatever, $50,000 there. He gets picked up off waivers by the Cowboys, so actually he probably could go get out of the shed, but he was in the shed for a couple of days, and now maybe he's happy to be on the pack, but he obviously has had after getting paid pretty good money, he hasn't played so well for the Cowboys. That's why they're released. So Diggs brothers, talk about it in there. Maybe you can figure out a strategy and get your head straight. The other person I'm putting in the shed is Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Bucs, Tampa Bay. They still have a chance to win the division and make the playoffs, but this team has lost 7 of 8 games. Even with Godwin and Evans back in the lineup for the last few games, it doesn't matter. It's the defense that sucks. And I don't know. Even if they win the division, I think it might be the end of the Todd Bowles era in Tampa. Just seems to be kind of losing the touch, losing control, maybe a little bit of the team. And, it's mostly defense that's happening for. Club Dub. Hey, man, King Henry. This dude, first of all, he's a freak of nature. I mean, most people, maybe they know this, maybe they don't know. The dude's a vegan. And as a guy who was a vegetarian for many years and an athlete, getting a lot of flack from the boys, I never was 255 pounds and 6'4" and could run a 340. So this dude, look, he delivers. This is his time of year. 216 yards, 4 touchdowns against the Packers, really to get them a chance at the playoff berth, because if they lost that game, they were going to be eliminated. And obviously, we'll talk about it later, the Steelers did lose too, so he's given them a chance. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of that when they play this weekend as well. But King Henry, Club Dub, get in there. You've got your stuff straight. You're still a stud and the man, so have yourself a time. I'll get some vegan treats for you, whatever you want. We'll figure that out for the service. And then the Texans defense, man, and I've been touting this team all season. I was taken in the face for a few weeks there. Early in the year, they were struggling. Their offense still isn't great, but this defense, I claim it to be the best in 6 years. It's arguable. Going into week 18, they're giving up 272 yards a game against their opponents and 16.6 points per game. And you kind of stack that against the teams of the last 5-6 years. You've got Cleveland, 2023 Cleveland. They were under that yardage march, 270.2, but they gave up more points, right? They ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs. The Baltimore team of 2023 that was the 1 seed, they gave up less points but more yards, so 16.5 points per game. They obviously lost in the title game against Kansas City. 49ers of 2022, they gave up 16.3 points per game, so a little bit better but more yards. They lost in the title game as well that year to Philly. That was the Brock Purdy kind of imploded year. He got knocked out early. And then you've got the Patriots of 2019. This is the team that probably is the closest comp. 275.9 yards per game back then, but only 14.1 yards points per game. I'm sorry. So, they were the 3 seed, but they lost in the wild card. So none of these teams won the Super Bowl, but I would say this Texans defense is the best unit that you can find around at this point. So have some fun. You still got to win this weekend. You're going to make the playoffs for sure, but can you get that Jimmy Wegs ticket on the AFC South? That would be great. Well, let's talk about college football. As I mentioned, there were some other bowl games that we didn't go over last week. Some notable ones, Illinois won Iowa won a big game against Vandy. They scored a ton of points, which is weird for them. You saw I guess it was Texas beat Michigan. That was a pretty convincing win. Maybe that boosts Arch Manning into next year. I don't think he's coming out in a draft this year. But in the actual playoff games, you had the quarterfinals. Really, I would say one game was close. The other three were, the Canes started off, they were dominating Ohio State early. It was kind of fun. Like, we're watching the game, they get a quick score. I'm like, all right, let's go. All I got to do is cover 9.5. And obviously, I've got my national title ticket, which is like an 80 to 1 and 100 to 1. I'm like, keep winning. But Ohio State made that big play down the field, and like next play, linebacker pick 6, returns to the house. Clearly saw it on film, read it like a book, was caught it in stride, and went to the house up 14-0. Ohio State made it interesting. Obviously, they cut it 17-14 at one point. It was in the balance there in the fourth quarter, but the Canes made a nice drive and really just dominated Ohio State in the end defensively. So, they cover the game, the dog winner, and the game stayed under like Coops thought it would. They're going to be a game, to make the finals. We'll talk about it in a minute. They're favored in the next game. So good job, Canes. Keep winning for Jimmy Wegs. And also Dalton's got the ticket as well, so we're both on that side. Ducks dominated. Look, Texas Tech was a team I thought could be a little bit of an alt because they, nobody's going to watch the Big 12 as much as they're going to watch the Big 10 and the SEC. They had this great defense, and their defense played fine as their offense did nothing. It was kind of weird. In the first half, 6-0 for the Ducks. Second half, just kind of winded them down, just kept turning the ball over in critical situations, and then Oregon finally broke them and won 23-0 in this one. So they get the cover and the under in this one. The big game that I know a lot of my friends, former co-host Action, who didn't go to Indiana, but some of his brothers did, and his dad was a big Indiana guy. Some of them went to, I know his brother went to the Rose Bowl. They hadn't been there like 50 years or something like that. They came out and just destroyed Bama. I mean, first half was kind of close. I thought Bama had some opportunities, maybe not offensively, but defensively to make some plays. But they chose to blitz Mendoza and go man-to-man, and he lit them up like a Christmas tree. He went 7 for 7 in blitz situations. He threw for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on those plays. And more importantly, Indiana just gouged him on the run. They had over 150 yards rushing, and they ended up gaining more on the ground than the Crimson Tide gained in the game, and won the game 38-3. So a good cover for Indiana. The game still stayed under despite that big output, and I think we can pretty much say that the SEC is overrated. You know what I mean? Like, it just, in the end, obviously Alabama and all those guys, I'm glad that they big boyed that team. Last game, the All-SEC game, and the only entrant into the semifinals was Georgia against Ole Miss, and this one was, look, Georgia had the game early. They were leading 21-12. It looked like they were a little bit on cruise control. Their defense was semi-containing Chambliss and stuff, but then in the second half, Chambliss got hot, especially like halfway through the third quarter and on. He ended up hitting for 362 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, making some beautiful deep throws. I was, late in the game, I was baffled that Georgia didn't have, 2 high safety looks, that they were just completing these deep balls and having other shots. And I was just wondering, what's going on? They're going man-to-man out there? I mean, it's just, the Ole Miss guys were coming down with it. In the end, Ole Miss moved in position. I guess the key factor was there was a hold. Ole Miss had, late in the game, Georgia was driving. Kirby Smart kind of botched this. Instead of trying to run the ball, he threw the ball in the red zone inside the 10, and the last 2 passes got deflected, so they opted to kick the field goal instead of scoring a touchdown to ultimately tie the game at that point. I was curious. They left too much time for Chambliss and the gang, and they got into field goal range pretty quickly, kicked the field goal to go up 37-34. The game was over with like 1 second, or whatever, maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and then this weird lateral that hit the pylon. So it was ruled a safety with 1 second. I mean, everybody rushed on the field, and they stopped it, backed it off, gave them 1 second. They did a free kick. Georgia recovered it, And apparently if you are on the ground when you recover it or something like that, it's an untimed down or untimed play. It seemed a little suspect to me. I'm like, if Georgia ends up winning this, like there's got to be a total protest. But in the end, that stupid pitchy woo-woo play never worked. So they end up losing the game 39-34, and Ole Miss advances without Lane Kiffin. But as Dalton mentioned via text to me during the game or after the game, he's like, Lane Kiffin just made $500,000 for that win, because I guess every win that they make in every game that Ole Miss wins in the playoff, he gets compensated by like $500,000 or something because of his departure. That was one of the deal points for going to LSU. Hey, good for him and good for them. So it sets up the semis this week. The first semifinal is Miami against Ole Miss. This is in the Fiesta Bowl. Miami's a 3-point favorite a 3-point favorite in this one, 51.5 point total. That's Thursday the 8th at 6:30 p.m. So maybe we'll tape before that and we'll figure that out. I do like Miami again in that game. I think they are rightfully favored. I think that total is way too high, even though Ole Miss is a really good offense and their defense kind of sucks, but seems like a lot of points for that game. Oregon versus Indiana is the second game, a rematch. They had played earlier in Eugene, and Indiana won on the road, that kind of signature win. Indiana's a 4-point favorite in this one, 47.5 point total. This is in the Peach Bowl, Friday at 6:30 p.m. That's the 9th. So 8th is the first game, the 9th is the second game. I don't know. I think Indiana's still head and shoulders above all these guys in the field, but you never know. There could be a letdown after the big win, and Oregon certainly has faced them before, and their defense was credible against Texas Tech. So we'll talk a little more about that next week in the next week's podcast. Coop with his picks went 3-1, and that brings him almost 500 in the year. He was pretty far down, so he's really closing as the season's gone on, especially the playoffs. So that's all you can ask for. In the NFL, by the numbers, week 17, the Dogs were 9-7 on the year. They're just four picks above 500, so you're not winning money if you bet Dogs outright, but that's certainly the way it's been lately. A lot of Dogs covering. The unders rebounded after, what do we saw? December is what we usually call it. But the unders won this past week at 9-7. Not a resounding victory. Overs are still plus 10 on the season. We'll see if that continues in week 18. All right, so the highlights of week 17, the Jags are 1 win away from winning the AFC South and making me sad. I did bet them to win the AFC South a couple weeks ago, so I have a hedge there, of course. James Hedgerton III is always around. I give Indy credit in this game, not just Rivers. The whole team played hard. They've obviously swooned. They were the first team to 8 wins or something, and now they haven't won since. But they led at the half, and they made the Jags earn it. The Jags didn't cover the number in the end, the -6.5. They win the game 23-17, and I was hoping that there would be kind of an upset there, so my Texans ticket could hit, but it's not going to happen. And barring a miracle, they'll probably win the division now. The Saints keep winning, dude. This team, even trailing 13-0 in this game, they've played really defensive battles for the most part in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and now they've won 4 straight. They roared back, scored 34 points in this game, won 34-26. And Tyler Shuck is the number 2 guy in the Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. I mean, I should say his odds. I'm not sure if he should win, but the thing is like the Tyrone McMillans of the world for Carolina, who's been good, but, Shuck is winning, and they won 4 straight, and nobody gave him any credit, and he's getting it done. So there's a lot of support for him. We'll see what happens this final week of the season. The Eagles hold on. It wasn't pretty for the Eagles. They ended up playing well in Buffalo, and this is what the Eagles have been all year. They're a 1.5 team. They play really good for a half, whether it's the first or second. They can't put together a whole game. They had 17 yards of offense in the second half against Buffalo, but it was enough to win. I mean, Josh Allen, I think he's still a little bit affected from his injury. He made a couple weird plays, but had a chance. They score a touchdown to make the game 13-12, decided to go for 2, which is a little weird for a home team, especially when you've dominated the other team in the second half. And they had the wide open pass, and Allen just missed it. So he's not infallible. but they ended up losing 13-12. The Bills did, and the Eagles won the game outright. So good call on that one for Coop and his 401k pick of the week. I'm telling you, that was never a sweat, right? You know, what are you going to do? The Bears fall short. Well, the Sunday Night Football game was entertaining. It was one of the most fun games to watch. It was a lot like the Ole Miss Georgia game, I suppose. Both teams 400 yards of total offense or more. I mean, the difference in the game was that the Bears had that pick six to start the game, and that kind of set them up. Otherwise, I think San Francisco would have won even easier. But this 49ers offense is rolling. They did punt twice in this football game, but they've only punted twice in December. They ended up getting 32 first downs in this game. I mean, they couldn't be stopped. And it was frustrating for me as a Bears fan because I've always been raised with the Bears being a defensive team, and they can't stop this team. And it's I mean, you don't even kittle the tight end. It doesn't matter. Purdy's playing really great, and Shanahan's just in his bag. He's really got it going. So they end up winning 42-38. Last play of the game, obviously the Bears had a chance to drive and win. Another last-second attempt by them to pull one out of their butts. And look, I don't fault Caleb Williams at all for the play. I think that, he could have maybe made the play, but he was flushed and went to his left. It's tough to make that throw. Maybe missed a guy early. I don't know. In the end, the Bears' offense played great. Their defense was suspect, as the San Francisco's defense is suspect. So we'll talk about that further this week and into the playoffs, as both teams will make the playoffs. The Rams fall short. Yeah, this was a tough one. They effectively, with San Francisco winning, it kind of gave them no hope, I suppose. And with Seattle winning at Carolina, there was no shot for the Rams to get the 1 seed or win the division. So maybe there was a little disincentive there as Atlanta came out gangbusters in the first half and the Rams were making all sorts of problems. But, hey, they still had a push. They ended up losing 27-24. Atlanta wins, and it's kind of funny. Atlanta was eliminated weeks ago from the playoffs, but they put it together, much like the Saints late in the season. They're 7-9. They could finish 8-9 and technically be tied for the lead in the NFC South if they win against the Saints. So maybe playing a little better. I'm a big Bijan proponent, Bijan Robinson. He probably should be Offensive Player of the Year, but I don't know. They're just not as revered because of their record. So anyway, interesting football game. All right, week 18. We've got 2 games on Saturday. These are 2 games that are almost winner get in or winner get a seed. The first game is Panthers at the Bucs. The Bucs are a 2.5 point favorite at home, 43.5 point total. This is 3:30 p.m. Central on Saturday on ABC and ESPN. So the nuance here is that the Panthers still have 2 paths to get in. They win the football game, they're in. They win the NFC South. They're actually got a 9-8 record. So they're over high 500, and that's great. That's kind of what we hope happens. Or Tampa wins, and that pulls them up to 8-9. Woo! Knocks down Panthers to 8-9, and then it would the determinant is if Atlanta would have to lose for the Bucs to get in. If Atlanta wins on Sunday, we'll talk about that matchup in a second. If they win on Sunday and there's a 3-way tie, the Panthers get the tiebreak because they swept against the Falcons. So kind of an interesting scenario. But either way, I like the Panthers in the ballgame. Look, they're not a great road team. They did get exposed a little bit against Seattle. The game was closer than it showed, actually. They lost 27-10 or something like that. But, they played tough, but not tough enough. Too many, bad plays and turnovers. If they play a clean football game where they don't turn the ball over and Bryce Young just has to make good throws, just not bad throws, I think they win this football game. I mean, the Bucs have lost 7 of 8. Yes, they're at home. Yes, they've been there before. Yes, they might get Tristan Wirfs back. Yes, they might have whatever. It's the defense, man. This defense can't stop anybody. And I just don't, I don't know, Dean might be back or whatever. I just don't believe in them right now. So, yeah, you want to hold the Bucs. I get it. You believe in them and you want them to win. And I love Baker, but Baker's not 100%. It seems foolish to lay the number here. So I'm going Panthers plus 2.5 here. I think that they'll win this game and hopefully just put to rest that they should be the division winner and be at, get at it. Seahawks at 49ers. Seahawks are 1.5 point favorite on the road, 48 point total. This is 7 p.m. Central on Saturday night during my game night. So yeah, it'll be fun. That'll be exciting. We'll have everybody over here, and Ridgeway will be here, and she'll be wanting to watch the game and not playing the games that I have for my game night. But hey, look, Seattle's a better football team. I've been against them many times. You look at my previews, I was down. Didn't think Sam Darnold was the answer at quarterback. He clearly has played great. I shouldn't say great. He's played well. Defense is too good. And I think that's the difference. 49ers have no defense. Yes, they have a great offense, but at some point the Seattle defense is going to buckle down and get some stops. I don't know if the 49ers can do that. Sam Darnold will have to turn the ball over 3 times for them to win this football game, the 49ers. So I'm all on the Seahawks here. I'll be wrong with Darnold if that's the case. I think at 1.5 it's a gift. I just think metrically there's no contest here. Seattle's much better. And if they end up losing the game, 49ers do get the 1 seed. Seattle would fall to the 5 seed, and then the Rams to the 6. So the Rams are kind of locked into the 6 more or less. So 49ers, if they lose, the 49ers do fall back. I think that because of if I'm right on the tie breaks, they stick the 5 seed. So the Rams are really stuck at the 6. I don't think they can move up anymore with the loss last week. On Sunday, you've got it's a good grouping at both noon and 3:30, 3:25. You've got the Saints at Falcons, as mentioned. Falcons are a 3.5 point favorite at home, 44 point total. Look, I understand the Falcons played well last week, and they've been playing better than they did before they were eliminated. These Saints are playing really good. I think they're actually, if they stopped the season and started from here or started 4 weeks ago, Saints would win this division. I just think they're a better football team. It's not just Shuck, it's their defense. 3.5 seems too many to me. So I take the points with the Saints here again until I'm wrong. Like I said last week, it's not a hold your nose. Tennessee was game, ready to go, but the Saints found a way to win. They believe it, and 3.5 is way too many for me in this game. All right, Browns at Bengals. Bengals are 7.5 point favorites at home, 44.5 point total. Myles Garrett will get his sack record one way or another in this one. The Steelers kind of staved that off for one more day, and that was a big win for the Browns at home, winning 10-6. The Bengals traditionally do struggle against the Browns. I know that. I'm not just ignoring that factoid. But the Bengals are playing good. They're playing what they did last year. Hey, we're just going to keep scoring, and you got to keep up with us. The Browns aren't going to be able to do that. I don't care how bad the Bengals defense is. 7.5 is a bad number, but I think that the Bengals are making a statement, maybe to keep their coach, which is crazy because I don't think he's that good. But I think the Bengals are going to win this going away. I think the Browns had their Super Bowl last week, did their best to try to knock out the Steelers. And this week, as soon as Garrett gets his sack, I don't know if he's going to stay in the game or not. So I like the Bengals in this one to continue to play hard for the rest of the season. You go back to that game when they lost against the Ravens, man. If they would have won that game, this would have been an important game for the playoffs. So I do think the Bengals will win this one. Here we go. This is the AFC South games. The Colts at the Texans. Texans are 10.5 point favorites, 39 point total. It appears Rivers is not going to play. Riley Leonard, I guess, will start. Look, I love the Texans. You know that. They didn't play great against the Raiders a couple weeks ago, but they went to the Chargers and did what we thought that they would do, dominate that Chargers defensive line or offensive line. I think the Colts gave it their best effort last week, and this week's going to be rough. So 10.5 is a bad number for the Texans. I know that. They've struggled doing bigger than 7 point covers all year. But I'm going to stick with it because it's a meaningful game to them. And I kind of expect the effort that we saw against the Arizona team, before the Raiders when they just kind of came out and throttled them. Because this is a meaningful game. If they win this game and the Jags somehow lose, then they're going to get it. And I like that. So I'll lay the wood with the Texans here and hope that they can get the division title. Otherwise, they may end up playing next week, which kind of sucks. I think both these teams are alive to win the AFC, meaning the Jags and the Texans. So it'd be a shame if one of them has to get knocked out right away. But so that's that game. And, of course, under in any Texans game is good. 39 is fine. Colts defense is decent. So I can see this being a, 21-10 game or 21-7 game or something. Okay, then we've got the Titans at the Jags. In the contest, it's 13 points. In the market's more 12.5. Jags are favored at home, 47.5 point total. Look, they keep winning. They're playing great. I don't know. I probably wouldn't lay it with the Jags here. 13 is a big number. The Titans have played better in recent weeks, as you've seen. They probably could have beaten the Saints, and they've had a couple games. They're quick starters. I will give them that. So I'd probably take Titans first half if I was interested. I'm going to stay away either way because I think the Jags will win the game, whether they win by 13 or not. Just maybe too many points, but. Unfortunately, the Jags will probably win the AFC South. Yes, I'll cash a small ticket, but I wanted to cash the bigger ticket with Houston. So, Packers at Vikings. Packers are kind of a dead team walking. No, they've stuck in the 7th seed for last week and this week. 8.5 point dogs now on the road to the Vikings. 36.5 point total. Your Brosmer Vikings, I believe he's starting again. I should double check that. Maybe the number went up because of J.J. McCarthy starting. I understand they're going to win the game. I'm not laying 8.5 though. There's no way. And I mean, Jordan Love, probably not playing. A lot of guys for the Pack aren't playing because they can't improve they should probably figure out how to play better. The last couple of weeks have been rough for them. But, sure, you like the Vikings. I can see it, but 8.5. I think maybe I got to check with Coop. He put plus 8.5. He's got to understand that the Vikings are laying the number. I'll double check with him on his picks for that, but it's too many for me. Cowboys at the Giants. Cowboys are 3.5 point favorites on the road, 49.5 point total. This is like the Who Cares Bowl. I mean, the Giants did win a game last week against the Raiders. Maybe they regretted winning that game, and they did show that they were the better football team. Do they get 2 in a row? I don't think so, but I don't think I'm laying the Cowboys on the road, and maybe they're winning for pride. Actually, if you bet on the Cowboys win total, it's 8.5. And so, 8.5? Yeah, that sounds right. It's 8.5. So maybe they can't get home. Let me double check that. But yeah, I know that if the Cowboys win, they're supposed to hit their win total. So it's kind of like, let me just double check this. Maybe it's 7.5. Yeah, maybe they didn't make it. So either way, I don't care about this game. I'm passing 100%. Next game, Lions at the Bears. Bears are 3-point favorites at home, 50.5 point total. This starts the 325 slate. Tough one. The Bears they can't get the 1 seed. Oh, they're playing for the 2 seed. They're right now sitting in the 2 seed. If they lose and the Eagles win, then they get flipped, right? And what's the difference? The difference is if the Bears get to play, which NFC West team are you going to play? It doesn't really matter. It's whether they get a second game at home or not. I don't know. I don't like the number. I think that they're a better football team than the Lions, but because the Lions defense is trash, but the Bears defense isn't good either. I do think Campbell's going to bring a little bit of juice into this one. I just don't like the Lions either. So it's probably Lions or pass here plus the 3, but knowing the Bears, they're going to win this game just because Johnson's going to stick it to him. He's got a group of guys that really believe in him, and one way or another, maybe they win by the field goal. So it's probably a push game anyway. Over seems right, unless the weather's really crazy in Chicago on Sunday. Next game's Jets at the Bills. Bills are 7-point favorites at home, 37.5 point total. I think that the Bills don't have much to play for either. They're kind of locked in that 7 seed unless. So what happens right now is they're the 7 seed. They're in the playoffs, but they would, I think, need both the Chargers and Houston to lose or something. They're all 11-5. So they can jump one of them if somebody loses and so on. So I'm not sure. In the late window, they're already going to know if the Texans won, and they're never going to jump the Texans. To me, the best position for anybody to be in is probably the 5 seed, in the AFC. I would say AFC. The NFC 5 is great because you get to go play against Carolina. But the 5 seed here is going to be the winner of the last game here, Ravens-Steelers. I don't know. I don't think anybody fears those guys as much as they fear, going to the Broncos or something, So I don't know. It's the Bills are the Bills. They're going to win this game. 37.5 seems low, but so the Bills are going to win. I don't know if you want to lay 7. It looks like Coop likes that. Chargers at Broncos. Broncos are a heavy favorite, 13.5 point favorite, 37.5 point total. This is because Herbert's not playing. The Broncos win. They get the 1 seed. Everything goes through Denver, which is helpful to everybody for that team. They do need that home crowd, and that altitude will help them in the long run. They're going to win. 13.5, no way. Not going to lay it. Chargers, even if they play, they're not going to sit everybody, right? So their defense plays good enough to keep it within reason, and the Broncos' offense isn't great, but without Herbert, I don't know how many points they're going to score. Chiefs at Raiders. This can't be right. Chiefs are 5.5 point favorites, right? Yeah, I put it in wrong. Sorry, guys. A little technical difficulties. Got to fire the producer. Let's see. Where's the Chiefs game? There it is. Yeah, my bad. So the Chiefs are 5.5 point favorites on the road. Understandable because they're not on the road, are they? Oh, I thought the Chiefs were at home. So anyway, what I would say about this game, it's Kelsey's last game potentially for the Chiefs. Yeah, they are on the road, and 5.5. So look, I think the Chiefs are going to win the game. They've got Olakun or whatever his name, Olakun, who played decent last week. Raiders don't really want to win. They've sat Max Crosby. They sat Brock Bowers. So I understand why you would want to lay the wood here, but it's 5.5. It's not 3.5, right? So it's just one of these games. Like, nobody's going to care about that game, and the Raiders just kind of stink now. So Chiefs are pass, is what I'm telling you. Cardinals at the Rams. Here we go. Rams, like I said, not playing for much, but probably play some of the starters for a half or whatever. Cardinals haven't won forever. I think the last win they played was against the Cowboys. Their defense is god-awful. 46.5 point total seems low in this one because they do continue to score. You got to feel bad for the tight end who's broken all these records. They're just on a bad team. So, Rams, I don't know. Yeah, Coop likes them at 7. They're going to win the game. I don't know about 7. Maybe they're going to throttle them, but maybe they just run the ball. In the second half, it's going to be, what's his name? Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G's getting in there. I forgot to mention the Chargers. You've got Trey Lance starting for the Chargers, so yikes. I guess you want to lay it. I know that's too many for me, but it's fine. Then one more game in the AFC before the night game. Finns at Pats. Pats are 10.5 point favorites at home, 45.5 point total. They got to win the game and have Denver somehow lose that game against the Chargers to get the 1 seed. Looks like May likely will be the MVP as Stafford had a rough outing last week. 45.5 point total seems high because I think the Pats are going to throttle them, but I don't think they're going to give up many points to the Finns. So I lay the 10.5 with the Patriots because they put on a show last week. I think they continue to do it for May and also just have a shot at the 1 seed. So they may be scored by watching. If they see the Broncos up by 21-0 or something, maybe they call off the dogs, but I think they're going to win this one easily. And then the Commanders at the Eagles. Eagles are 4 point favorites at home, 39 point total. Tanner McKee gets the start in that one against Josh Johnson. What do you want me to say? They're going to be watching, obviously, the Bears. If they win, they keep the 2 seed. The Eagles, even if they win, they'll be the 3 seed, so they need a loss by the Bears. I think the Eagles can do it. I think I would take the Eagles -4 even with Tanner McKee. He was pretty solid last year, and the Commanders' defense is just awful. So I like Eagles here to cover the 4. And then the final game, Sunday night, Ravens at the Steelers. Steelers are 3.5 point dogs at home, 41 point total on NBC. I don't know what to say. I guess I've heard mixed things. Is Jackson playing? Is he not playing? Do we care if he plays? Because obviously just run Henry as much as you can. The Steelers' defense is pretty bad. And, I think that, the signing of Rodgers has seemed to work out for the Steelers. They've certainly been competitive, maybe more so than they would have been with whoever else they had or in the past. But I don't know. I know Tomlin at home, win or get in. Last game of the season, they got a great record. They're like 11-1, or I think they're like 12-2 in this situation. I just think the Ravens, I'm falling for the bias, I think they're a better football team than the Steelers, right, on paper. If they don't turn the ball over, the defense is pretty good. 3.5 seems like a lot. So I would lay it. If a gun in my head, looks like Coop likes the Steelers as for the reason I just mentioned. But they have one more shot to redeem their season. And the Steelers, DK Metcalf last week made a huge difference. He's out again this week from the suspension. So what can be said? I mean, if they can't throw the ball down the field, the Ravens, all they got to do is stop the run. And that's kind of what the Browns did last week. You don't think the Ravens can do that? They can do it, and they can score more points. So, yeah, I like the Ravens. -3 here. Something against you there, Coop. Let's go over the top 5 picks for us this week. So, again, I'll catch one of them to see what he thinks ultimately. He's got Pittsburgh +3.5 on that Sunday night game. Understandable, as I just mentioned, but I'm against him. It's not my top 5, but I would lean against that. Buffalo -7 makes sense. He's got Dallas 3.5. I think we've got it at 4, right? Yeah, no, -3.5. That's right. Minnesota -8.5. I got to check this one because he thought it was a dog. I think, I'll check that with him. Give him another opportunity. And then the Rams -7. So he likes some of the bigger favorites. We'll see. He's trying to claw back to 500 as I am. For me, I've got New England laying the wood -10.5. I like Seattle -1.5 on the road at the 49ers. I do like Carolina +2.5. These are all games that people seem to matter. The game that doesn't matter is the Bengals -7.5, but I think they're just playing good and they're just trying to get incentives and light up scoreboard, which they've been doing. And then Houston, it's a tough number, -10.5. I almost had Baltimore here as my 5th pick, but I backed away because of all the history here. Usually these games play within 3 points, but I'll take Houston -10.5 to roll the Colts in their final game, and we'll see what happens. Survivor, hopefully you're still alive in your Survivor picks. Of course I'm not. Art and our guys are not, but there are 6 guys left. Out of 18,000 and whatever 700 entries, there's only 6 left. It was kind of an amazing week last week. The Vikings took out some people on Christmas, and then the Vikings won, didn't they? Yeah. No, the one knockout. Yeah, the Vikings won, didn't they? Shoot, did I screw that up? Yeah, but anyway, there was one got knocked out, and then 3 on the Bucks on Sunday. So there's only 6 remaining. The implied value is a little over $3 million, and obviously this is it for all the marbles. Good luck to those guys. I think there's some people that have pretty good picks left. Some people have the Jags and such. So in the contest we do, I'm not doing great in our picks, but there's a lead pipe block. You got to pick 2 each week. I've got a couple of good guys left. Hopefully it works out for me. I'm not going to win it, but maybe have a good week. In the pick'ems contest, man, look, I told you it's been a tough year. We're 40%, went 2-3 again. Every week it's like that, even though I'm personally making some decent picks. We just can't agree on picks, which is fine. But that's because, look, the leader's under 70%. He's at 68.82%. That's the lowest percentage in the history of the contest. 58 wins and a half point. That's really low. And then the top 100 is just under 60%, 59.41. So maybe this week people close and they get over those metrics, over the 70, over the 60, because usually it's 70 and 60. It's been like that for 5-6 years. I'd be surprised because it's just been one of those years, and week 18 is really hard. Hopefully we can get a couple more picks and, get over 42%. I don't know. Anyway, what's going on in terms of the look ahead? Yeah, I'm prepping for game night, which is tomorrow. Finished cleaning most of the place. I got to do the floors tomorrow and stuff like that. Run around, get some food and all that kind of stuff. Should be a fun time. 40, 50 people coming in. And then got to go back to work. Been off for a couple of weeks. Got to hit the ground running and make it happen. So hopefully you guys can enjoy your weekends, enjoy the football, and follow us at Side Action Pod on X, Side Action Podcast on Instagram. Follow me at Wegs on X and on Instagram. follow Mr. Grumpy Gills on X and Galton Cooper on Instagram. So enjoy your weekend. We will check in next week for the college football semis as well as the first round of the playoffs. That's when things really matter, and we can start cashing some real tickets, for the playoffs. All right. Love you guys. Take care.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Side Action Podcast. We appreciate all of your listens, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you all again next week.
Side Action Podcast, its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the show hosts or guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of this podcast, and opinions of the show hosts and guests may conflict. Individuals following the advice given on the podcast accept their own risk of loss, as the Side Action Podcast, its owners, hosts, associates, or guests will not guarantee any advice given. The opinions and advice given are for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Intro credit to OTMG the Vet, Old Me versus Young Me Part 2.